Of course, you have to be paying attention to football to even care about winning the World Cup. Although it has spread to every nation on the planet, it has encountered obstacles here and there. In these nations, other sports dug in. The history shows a story. If you look at why football faced those obstacles, you'll see the story. Anglophobia was a factor in football's wilderness years in Ireland. Ireland had a long history of football, playing internationally even as far back as the 1870s. But national issues got in the way. The Irish Football Association was the only major Irish sporting body based in Belfast, the British foothold on the island. The other two big sports came under the auspices of the Irish nationalist Gaelic Athletic Association, the GAA. Not only did the GAA do sport, they also promote Irish language, Irish culture, and war against the British. From early on, the GAA forbade footballers from joining. Association football was denounced as un-Irish. Gaelic facilities were closed off to them. Instead, Gaelic fields were used for drilling Republican militias between the odd All-Ireland final of GAA sport. Irish nationalists got their wish, or at least 26/32 of it. The Irish Football Association remained in the north, where it couldn't really represent the south. Dublin soon set up its own People's Front of Judea. Then decades of clusterfudge ensued as both organisations claimed to represent all of Ireland. It took intervention by FIFA to settle the matter to where they are today, both ending up with less than they started with, a smaller labour pool, less resources and worse domestic leagues as a result of splitting. Ireland. Its fantastic appetite for sport, its almost unrivalled history of football and two national teams took 60 years to qualify for their first World Cup. And then 25 years after that to be able to use GAA stadia, but some still weren't happy about it. So, Gaelic football. Like hockey and cricket, British soldiers and officers brought football to the Bay of Bengal. Representative teams of militaries and merchants, and even club sides from England and Scotland often toured all the way up to independence. The All India Football Federation had close ties with its British brothers. In the fields of the Indian football heartland of West Bengal, they learned to play the game to a standard at which they could occasionally beat European teams. This peaked in the 40s and 50s with a semi-final place at the Olympics, becoming a founding member of the Asian Football Confederation and India's qualification for the World Cup, although money troubles hit. They couldn't in the end afford to go to Brazil. India was expelled from the World Cup twice, and football divided itself continentally. South Asia split itself from the empire, so it didn't have the connection to keep the many British teams touring. The best competition for international football came only from teams that were either terrible, distant, or Australia. National friendlies became rarer, while the domestic club game died on the vine. Meanwhile, decent cricket teams had never stopped visiting from the former empire. Cricket teams remained top-class opposition for South Asians, and India graduated to ICC member and test status team. One-day internationals and 2020 brought international cricket to tens of millions of people who couldn't sit around for a 5-day test series. So, cricket. Canada. Canada's just cold, isn't it? So, ice hockey. Civil dictatorships are very good at telling people what to do. The countries from behind the Iron Curtain dominated the mono-minded sports of the Olympic movement, the strongest, fastest and most agile, sports with objective measures that bend to the will of the determined. China and the Soviet Union, with their vast populations, not only could choose from the most physically able specimens to front their Olympic teams, but also the most mentally able, those who could withstand 8 hours a day of relentless drilling. The strongest weightlifter always wins. The fastest runner always wins. But football teams win through an elegant dance of creating and restricting space. Great leaps in the sport are developed by great minds. The individuals who think ahead of their opponent will win more easily than one with bigger, faster, stronger players. For obvious reasons, dictatorships rarely foster great, creative individual thinking, and when they do, that brilliance is quick to leave. Club football in dictatorships is used as a prestige tool for the ruling class. Either the favourite club, or more usually, teams from the nation's capital, are given unfair advantages either through allocation of resources or just plain corruption. The legacies of this run deep and remain after the fall of regimes. In democracies with diversified economies, we see industrial towns and second cities dominating. In dictatorships, capital cities. China has not only been part of the Olympic movement, in which dictatorly drilling is the blunt instrument of sporting instruction, but it remains part of the world in which sport is still treated differently. Like most of its region, China was a desperately poor country when they adopted football, and since then the sport has never really been high on the agenda, but they have recently changed tactics, declaring the intent to win the World Cup by 2050 and encouraging the growth of the world's game within its borders. It's still a prestige tool, just in a different way to the Soviets, internationally not domestic, and sport still plays second fiddle in East Asia, where work and education are the fields in which governments mandate and encourage the population to spend the majority of their waking hours. This has contributed to the incredible economic development of East Asia in the last century, but not its development in sport. In East Asia, leisure time is often seen more as an opportunity cost. For every year not spent in dictatorship or abject poverty, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore and China have spent in the classroom, the office and the factory floor. So, gymnastics and maths. Australia is a great cocktail of all the previous nations for why football failed here. They have the Indian isolation in football and the connection with the British Empire through other sports, the American healthy domestic market to support competing sports, the Irish nationalist support of their own code of football over the British one, and the Chinese attention to opportunity cost. So, Aussie rules, cricket, both rugbies, sailing, surfing, climbing, kangaroo boxing and bartending. Basically anything except football. Despite the drawbacks, football is nevertheless making itself known in each of these countries. As the world grows ever more connected, the game spreads to more people. Even the most fervent isolationist nationalist can't help but cheer when their own team scores. It might not be the future of the game, but that certainly was why football failed in some places. You may have noticed this video was made in collaboration with two very talented friends of mine. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi! Thanks for letting us collaborate on this video. I'm Anna.
I'm Nick.
And we're two-star players. We have a gaming channel where you can see things like...
We do full playthroughs of games with commentary on a rolling schedule, with a new upload every day. If that sounds fun, come give our channel a visit. We also have Twitch channels where we stream both video games and pole and ball comic drawing, with links in the description below.
This has been super fun, so thanks again for having us.